Good morning, Dolphins fans, and make sure you go ahead and subscribe because if the Miami Dolphins make a deal today before the NFL trade deadline at 4 p.m., we're going to be making a video about it. So hit that sub button, turn on that notification bell, that way you don't miss a thing. Coming up here on today's show, I have 5 Miami Dolphins that I personally think it's time to move on from. Not that I don't like these players, because if I'm being 100 with y'all, they're actually very good players, but I'm trying to get a rebuild going, trying to get some extra draft capital for the Dolphins since 1-7 at this point the season is a little bit of a wash. Let's go to number 5, and this is going to be probably the one that gets the most attention. If you can potentially move on from Tua Tagovailoa, I think you can try to do it. The biggest reason here is this. There's going to be some NFL teams out there that if they need a quarterback, right now the top team I think that needs a QB is in fact the New Orleans Saints, who did just lose Jameis Winston of the year with an ACL, but drafted number 5 overall in 2020. I personally don't think that Tua is ever going to be the franchise quarterback that you were hoping for. So if a team's going out there, they're looking for an extra guy, try to make a little bit of a project, because there will be teams that look at Tua and they're like, you know what? We can make him out of something. If teams were willing to do everything like they did with Josh Rosen, can guarantee you this, people are going to be willing to do the exact same thing for him. So here's the real question though, right? How much is Tua worth in a trade? You drafted him number 5 overall just a year ago. What would you want from him? If you're like, all right, man, we're going to sell. Let me know down in the comments how much Tua is worth in a trade. I'm going to go ahead and say if you can get a 3rd-round pick for him, you take it. Now, that's pretty low, considering the fact that like Sam Darnold went for a 2nd and a 6th. I'm just simply sitting up here. If it came down to it, I would settle for a 3rd. Would I be surprised if a team went ahead and gave the Dolphins a 2nd? No, I wouldn't. But at the same time, if I was Greer, if I was the Dolphins, I would be okay moving on with Tua for a 3rd-round pick. Coming in at number 4, I'm a big fan of Mike Gesicki, and this has nothing to do with him and has nothing to do with it. I don't think he's a talented player. It really comes down to what Miami has done over the last year. So the fact that he is entering the final year of his contract, if you don't want to go ahead and bring him back, then you got to get some draft capital for him right now, because I really do believe he is a top 5 or 6 pass-catching tight end in the league. The other issue is this. When Miami went out and drafted Hunter Long out of Boston College, number 81 overall, in this past year's draft, that kind of told me that, all right, we're looking for a plan after Gesicki. Now, this year he's got 40 grabs, 475 yards, 2 touchdowns. Probably minus Waddle, he's been the most reliable target that either Brissett or Tua has ultimately had. I hate the fact that he's on this list, but if your plan is to not bring him back next year, move on from him, trade him, maybe you can get a 3rd or a 4th-round pick for him. I really think he's that good. Now, if you're a big-time sports bettor out there, I want you to listen the heck up. Go to chatsports.com/bet. Use promo code Dolphins125. It's going to get you 125% deposit bonus. Now, if you're wondering what can I potentially bet on, you can bet on all your NFL games this week. You can bet on playoff stuff in the future, MVP, who's going to win the Super Bowl, World Series. Maybe you're going to go ahead and bet on the Braves. I mean, that's who I want to win. I'm just going to be real. But go to chatsports.com/bet. 125% deposit bonus. Put down 100, get $125 for free. Next player coming up here on my Dolphins trade candidates list. And yes, I do have these ranked from 5 down to 1 in terms of the most likely. Noah Igbinoghene is going to come in here at number 3, drafted number 30th overall in 2020 out of Auburn. And I always thought that Noah was going to play inside. And for whatever reason, Miami's still trying to force him on the outside, so it could be a potential bad scheme fit. But he's also never really been reliable when he has been on the field. If you do follow PFF, he was the worst cornerback in the entire league, 122 out of 122 last season. I personally think maybe if you give him a change of scenery, there's plenty of teams right now competing for playoff spots that could use an extra corner, especially someone that does bring some physicality. I will give him that. When I watch Noah play, though, it reminds me a lot of a player who was almost shell-shocked of how much quicker the NFL is. And if you take just a few snaps off, a few plays off, if you're not putting in the work, people are going to catch up to you. And maybe a change of scenery would be a good thing for somebody who, again, you drafted in the 1st round just a year ago. Now, this is going to be an interesting question, and I'm really curious to see how this one goes down. Now, right before I started filming this video, there was a report that came out that said apparently Xavien Howard is going to be the one player that they're like, no way, we're not going to trade. But if you had to pick a cornerback to deal, right, either Noah Igbinoghene, Byron Jones, or Xavien Howard. Out of those three names right here, who would you move on from? If you're going to sit here and say Noah Igbinoghene, type NI, Byron Jones, throw those BJs in the comments, or Xavien Howard, XH. At number 2 here, DeVante Parker. And probably another name that's going to be like, really, you guys are going to move on from Parker? There's two things. If you're playing us to stick with Tua, then yes, I'm absolutely going to say move on from DeVante, because now we've had a 2-season sample size almost where it's a bad connection. The other reason, and I know Dolphins fans really like Parker because it's always been, well, what could have been? He was drafted in the first round, I believe, in 2014, and he has only one season with over 1,000 yards. They paid him because he was great in 2019, and since then, it's just been injuries after injuries, and he's got all the talent in the world, and I don't think anybody ever denies that. My thing that I always say about Parker is at 6'3", 220 pounds, when you were a kid and you built a receiver on Madden, you built him to have all the skills that Parker has had. I really think he is that talented. The issue, he can't stay healthy. And even when he is on the field, Tua can't hit him. It just doesn't look like they're in sync whatsoever. So move on from Parker. Get some draft capital for him. There's going to be teams right now trying to make the playoffs that would love to have a receiver, maybe a wide receiver too, like DeVante. Coming in here at number 1 for my Dolphins trade candidates is Emmanuel Ogbah, defensive end. Ogbah's entering the final year of his deal. They gave him 2 years, $15 million. He was sitting out some of the offseason. He wanted a brand new contract, and I mean, I've been very impressed from what I've seen from Ogbah. Now, sure, he doesn't have as many sacks as he had a year ago, but his pressure rate is still up there pretty high. One of the better edge rushers as well in the NFL right now, but the fact that he's going to be a free agent in 2022, you didn't pay him last season, he won an extension, you said, nope, you're going to stick around. If your plan is to not give Ogbah an extension, move on from him right now and get some draft capital, because for a player that as good as Emmanuel is, and in the NFL, if you can add a premier edge rusher to your roster, I mean, I'm not saying Von Miller is a premier edge rusher by any means. His name value is definitely better than Ogbah, but the fact that the Rams just gave up a 2022 second and a 2022 third-round pick for Von Miller, why can't you at least get a second-round pick for Ogbah? And if you're a team competing right now to make the playoffs, get into the Super Bowl run, there will be teams out there that I really, truly believe would be willing to give up somebody like that, or give up draft capital like that for Ogbah. That's why he's number 1 here on my list. So those were my top 5 names. This show, not about me. It's about everyone watching right now. And here at Chat Sports, we want you guys to interact with us. So if there's another name out there, you're like, man, how did this guy leave him off it? Let me know. I'm going to be looking. Name a Dolphins player that you think they should trade away this year. So one more time, we got Tua, Mike Gesicki, Noah Igbinoghene, DeVante Parker, Emmanuel Ogbah. The NFL trade deadline, remember, 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern time today. Make sure you subscribe. Turn on those notifications. If the Dolphins make a trade, you're also going to be getting a video.